Where do you live? I live in Montreal. I live on mountain sites in a home that was built in 1954. I haven't been living there since then. Where do you live? But is that in fact where I live on mountain sites? Some people would say I live more here. And perhaps maybe I do. Is that really where I live? Hmm. And where do you live? So last year, I went to visit someone in his office, and his mother was the receptionist, a large company. Mother sitting at the reception and very vibrant, really, a smile and exuberance. Says, "Wow, I'm here. I was here to see her son, and she knows who I am." And said, said and she just says to me, "Well, I just turned 90." I said, "Wow, 90. And you're the receptionist." "How'd you get here?" "So I drove." "Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful." Working at 90, driving on her own to go to work. So I ask her, "Tell me, where do you live?" So she tells me, Cavendish, area, not far from here. So I say to her, "Nah, you don't live there." I say to this 90-year-old, tells me that she lives on Cavendish Boulevard in a high-rise building. I said, "No, you don't live there." So she looked at me a little. She says, "I ask her, where do you live?" She said, "Oh, this is my address. This is where I live." Says, "No, no, no, you don't live there." Now she's looking at me like I'm like, what am I trying to make her crazy? Am I just, you know, says, "You maybe sleep there and maybe you eat, you know, a meal or two there and you do things there, but that's not really where you live." Says, "You know where you live? Right here, between your ears, what goes on in your mind. That's really where you live." And obviously, you're living in your mind in a healthy place. And as a result of that, at 90 years old, you're healthy. You can come drive to work on your own. You can come to work and with exuberance. That's where we live. We live in our minds, which is an important thing to appreciate, that that's really, where we're living. And you want to make sure that you live there appropriately. That at least when you get to 90, you're still driving and you're still going to work with a smile, with exuberance. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zuch and Kadeshim, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. I'm sharing it from here, but that's not where I live. I live with my thoughts. That might not be so healthy for us. Well, there can be a sadness that comes from an anxiety that we have. And that anxiety is maybe in our heart, but we give it room in our thoughts. And we think it. How do you deal with that? So in the previous chapter, chapter 26, we dealt with how to deal with your challenges in life that are come from outside of you that you can't control, how to deal with that. And then we came with the challenges that come from you, the things that we need to fix in our lives, to take responsibility, to face our stuff rather than stuff our face. But now we deal with it even deeper in our thoughts that come because we have an anxiety about something in our lives, right? And then that appears in our minds. And that's where we're living in the moment, in those thoughts. Now, what happens if those thoughts happen to you? In the previous chapter, we spoke about those thoughts when they happen to you during the regular routine of your day. And therefore, we said, put it aside and choose a time of calmness that you will deal with it. But what happens if those thoughts of anxiety, those thoughts of, things that pain you, that challenges that you're dealing with, are now coming to you in the middle of learning or in the middle of your prayers, in the middle of doing something that's a mitzvah? I'm sorry. I take that back. Not during that time. That'll be the next chapter. I don't know why I got confused. Yeah. Not during. But when you're occupied with your own mundane affairs at that time, I'm sorry. I don't want that over me. Right? You're having breakfast, not now. Okay. Scratch that. That'll be the next chapter. You're eating breakfast, dinner, whatever. You're at work. And these thoughts that are creating an anxiety for you are entering your mind. What should, and it's making you sad because of these thoughts. Tanya Today says, guess what? You should be the contrary. Be happy that you have those thoughts. Be happy that I have thoughts of anxiety. I mean, some of those thoughts might be really negative thoughts, like, not trusting in God. And that's why I have the anxiety. Says the Alter Rebbe, why should you be happy? Because you have now an opportunity to do a mitzvah. It says in the third paragraph of the Shema, right, that the verse says that you fulfill a mitzvah when you don't follow after your heart and after your eyes, which lead you astray. Now, who's that talking about? Not the righteous, because righteous don't have negative thoughts, thoughts of anxiety. They don't have it. Why? Because they've transformed their heart. And in their heart, being transformed totally, that it's aligned with God, they don't have negative, right? These negative thoughts. So then who is the one that is a strayer? It's you and I. We have those thoughts. And you know why we have those thoughts? And they might even be, thoughts, they might be erotic thoughts, says the Alter Rebbe, of an innocent nature, because it could be erotic thoughts of not to someone you're not allowed to have relations, but of your own wife, for example. Yet, it's not the time for it, right? It's not the time for that. So it's not speaking about the righteous, it's speaking about you and I having thoughts that we shouldn't have. So why should we be happy? because we now get the chance to fulfill a mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? That you refrain from that thought and push it away. Wow. So what's the joy then? That you fulfill the mitzvah of God. You are in compliance with the divine will. Now you might say, well, yeah, but if I didn't have the thoughts, then I'd be even more compliance. Alter Rebbe says, no, you're fooling yourself to think that you're like the righteous, that you shouldn't have those thoughts. That's fooling yourself. You're not righteous. And halavai beinani, and so be it that you should even just be a beinani and not a rasha for even a single moment. But even the beinani has those thoughts enter their mind. But what does the beinani do when that evil impulse, that thought arises from the heart to the mind? What does a beinani do? And all of us that were beinani in training, you take your two hands and push it away. And be joyful. Why? Why? Why are you joyful? Because God gave you an opportunity that you could fulfill his will. What's his will? That when that negative thought comes in, because you are not a righteous person, that thought of an anxiety, that thought, erotic thought, whatever it is, that is not aligned with the divine will, well, you're not in control of that. That's who you are. It came in order that now you could choose to push it out with two hands. And therefore, fulfill a mitzvah of God. Explains the Alter Rebbe, with every repulsion of a thought that is of sitter acher, of the negative side, right? And you suppress it. You're suppressing that thought. You're not giving it time in your head. Free rent, as I call it, right? Not giving it that. You know what you're doing? You're taking this full of hot air negativity, which is like an eagle that it's like soaring like an eagle, and you're suppressing it. You're knocking it down, not allowing it time in your head. You're not allowing it to take you over. You are suppressing it, knocking it down. Two hands, removing it from your head, fulfilling a mitzvah. Says the Zohar, something remarkable, which concludes today's class, that the divine satisfaction happens when sitter acher, the negative side, that eagle that's soaring, that's full of hot air, right, soaring above, that's really has no substance to it. And you subdue it, you subdue that negativity by pushing it away, says the Zohar, thereby God's glory rises above all, more than any other praise. And this ascent is greater than all else. Wow. Is that powerful? Is that powerful? Menachem Hillel, do you mind? Psst. Menachem Hillel, do you mind getting the door? Okay. So what are we doing? We're subduing the sitter acher, the negative side, pushing it away, suppressing it, right? That's what you're doing. You're not working it through. Why am I having this negative? Why is the anxiety there? Get rid of it. It's not a time. When the thought comes that brings anxiety, when the erotic thought comes, what negative thought that you have of a loved one comes, just push it away. It's not a time to analyze what's going on over here. Don't analyze it. Get rid of it. There's no greater praise. There's no greater achievement than you can do, says Yesayar. No other greater praise to God, the glory of God. It's mind-boggling. So this is a thought of mine. Why would that be? I mean, and helping another person, being charitable or act of loving kindness, visiting the sick, praying with all of your heart and soul. And this is greater? So a thought of mine is, because when you pray, there's an external expression of it. People see you praying. Right? I mean, maybe you're praying by yourself. That's true. Could be. When you're giving charity or doing an act of loving kindness to another person, well, there's the other person, and there's sort of like there's a payback over here. There's a payback when you do an act of loving kindness to another person. Now, you might not do it for that reason, but inherent to the loving act is a payback, person's appreciation. Now, maybe sometimes people don't appreciate, but inherent to an act of loving kindness is a payback. Here, there's no payback. You had an erotic thought. You ain't telling anybody about that, and actually don't, unless it's to your mentor who's helping you through this, right? If it's necessary, it might not be necessary at all. If you're having a negative thought about your child, say, oh, by the way, I had this really negative thought about you, thinking about how, yeah, da, 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 da. But you know what? Don't worry about it. I pushed it away with two hands. I didn't let it ruminate in my mind. I didn't give it free rein. No one says that to their child. No one says it to their spouse. No one says that to their friend. So then, there's no credit, even though it can be foolish to say that because, you probably get less credit than credit, but whatever. Here, the negative thought is only between you and God. This is a true statement of your belief in God, that God knows what's going on in your head. And there's a negative thought no one else knows. No one else knows. Why did you push it away? Only because there is a God in your life. Why did you bite your tongue and not say something, that negativity to your friend? You know why? Because you're going to hurt your friend, and maybe your friend will, not want to have to do with you. So why did you do it? Because there's a God? No, not necessarily. Maybe you did it because you didn't want to lose a friend. So therefore you bit your tongue. Right? Why didn't I act in a way that, take something from someone that I really wanted it? Yeah, people are going to think that I'm just a greedy person and I took something that really belongs to me, but, whatever. Other words, why did I do it? Maybe because I don't want to look greedy in the eyes of my friend or others. Why did I push away a negative thought in my head in the end? So it might be because, I don't want to become a negative person. And that's true. That's true. But this thought process of pushing it with two hands because it is sitzer acher is a negative thought, is in this manner of thinking it through is because there is a God. Because not necessarily you're going to push it with two hands right away, and you're not going to think of it in this, But more likely, the reason why you're doing it is because you truly believe that God knows what's going on in your mind. And therefore, you are pushing it away. Powerful. Powerful, powerful. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? I don't see. Hopefully, there's great clarity here that. Okay. An erotic thought is not Frank. It's not. Oh, if you're in the middle of eating breakfast and having an erotic thought, it's not right. Um, right? It's in other words, it's not right to allow it to um, that you willfully choose to think it. The fact that it came to you, that's because we're not righteous. The righteous would never have such a thought of their own, at least. Right? Um, so we're not in control of the thought entering the mind. We're not in control of that, but we're in control of if we want to cogitate that thought, if we want to continue the thought, allow the thought residence in where we live. That we're responsible for. Rambam coming up. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where I am giving the class, but live, I hope, with you and Tanya in our heads, Torah in our heads, and that's where we live.